on, my friends? It is just after Christmas here in 2020, and I'm going to post a little clip of the new pedal board I just put together, and now we're making a whole new one today. Over the last maybe 4 or 5 weeks, I've done a lot of research. I mean, I've really been doing a lot of research this whole year on different pedals, and this year was really a learning year of like what I wanted to do with music, because I wanted to do more of this kind of ambient and electronic kind of stuff, and I really didn't know how to get into that. And I've tried a number of synthesizers and drum machines and sequencers and software, like doing everything in the computer on a laptop, and that's just not me. I really just don't like sitting at a computer and doing that kind of work. I like to just do things. So I've really gone full force into loopers, so hardware loopers, like an actual pedal that I can step on and it applies loops, and I've gone with the Boss RC30, and if you just saw the start clip there, I actually have 2 now. I bought 2 Boss RC30s. Because you can essentially think of my pedal board like this. My pedal board is split down the center, and half of the pedals are geared towards an acoustic setup, and they run into my acoustic amplifier. And then the other half of the pedal board is for my electric rig, my electric guitar, and they're more, the pedals are more geared towards that. And then they run into my little electric Marshall, my little tiny amp there. And basically, the pedal board just kept growing because I kept adding to both sides. And I've now really sort of, in my opinion, nailed it down to the pedals that I want to use and my setup, but it just doesn't fit on that pedal board. So we're basically going to take this wood today and we're going to extend this little guy here, which is my original pedal board, and we're going to add a foot onto this thing, and we're adding a second level, like a little stage, and on that level is going to sit the amp. So it's going to be like a bottom level for pedals, a second step for pedals, and then this top sort of pedestal where the amps will sit up, and it's going to clean up this corner a little bit, and also brings my amps up because they were sort of buried behind the pedal board and they were getting muffled. So this will be a lot nicer, but a bit of a bummer, minus like 10 degrees out there today, but what are you going to do? Okay, let's get to work. I'll grab some clips and I'll show you the finished result. What is going on? What a year it has been. Never mind all of the coronavirus issues. This year has been crazy for me trying to build my studio. As a guitar player who's trying to transfer over and make more electronic-based music, I want to do both. I love playing guitar and writing songs, but I also love hip-hop and electronic, so I really wanted to get into that kind of stuff. So this year has been a real journey of researching, lots of YouTube, buying gear, selling gear, in the search for the holy grail of gear that is going to supply me with what I want to do. So I'm going to get into a studio tour video shortly, and once I get my new studio sort of set up and I get into it, I'm going to make a video on basically it's kind of my journey and why I selected the items I did. Kind of a video that I wish I could have found, where somebody was like, hey, if you want to make this style of music, this is what you need. But it's just so personal. Everybody's using different stuff. So anyway, this video today, behind me, this little empty space here, I'm going to rebuild my studio today and transfer it, because right now the studio is sitting over here in the corner, and this is not the best workspace for making music. I'm always leaning over and trying to reach in and grab stuff. So I'm going to be taking these old shelving units. We used to have storage back here, and now I'm going to build up a little like floating wall unit with all of my equipment on it, and this is going to be my new studio space. So alright, I got a long day ahead of me, so let's get to work. I got to build this thing, disassemble the studio, move it all back here, and then reassemble it all neat and tidy. So alright, let's get to it. You know, when I do these projects, I always mean to get more footage of the construction portion, and then I just get whipping through this stuff because I just want to get it done and I forget to set the camera up again. So Last time we checked in, I was just putting these little brackets onto the wall. Basically, this bottom shelf was already built. This was just an old shelf I used, and I just cut the top one in half. I put some old barn board that I had kicking around on the front just to clean it up, and this little hole here in the barn board is going to work well because I'm going to run my cables out of there. And I'm just getting ready to run power in here. So, made myself a little door, and I'm going to put these two monster power bars inside, and then this power bar here, it's got some USB outlets, which is handy. I can charge stuff. I'm going to mount it up under here, and that way I just got a master switch, so when it's time and I want to power everything down, I don't have to go in, because right now I power down the amps. I have certain pedals that just don't have a power off switch. They just, like the LEDs, stay on all the time. So I end up going in and unplugging all of those. So it's a real pain in the butt. So I decided once I put this together, I just have a master power bar where I just click the power off on that, and it's going to shut everything down. I've got my little speakers mounted on the wall here, and I even put these little foam inserts under to try and isolate any vibrations or anything like that. But I'm pretty happy with the way this turned out. So now it's just taking this mess over here and putting it back over here. I better get back to work. These are my two acoustic guitars. I have a Norman, which I've had for, well, since basically I started playing guitar. Not in the best of shape, but that's my first guitar, so it has some sentimental value, so it's going to hang around. And that's my Taylor GS Mini, and that's basically my main guitar that I use, I would say, day in, day out. Over here we have my Fender Jaguar. It's the Kurt Cobain edition, so a few different things with the switches and the way they've wired it, but essentially it is a Jaguar, and my absolute favorite guitar. So let me give you a closer look at the actual desk here in the studio. Got a spot for my laptop to sit, and I do have an audio interface. I'm using the Focusrite Scarlett 4-in, 4-out. And I also have this little Atom pad controller here. So that's how I kind of got my start into sort of electronic music making, was through the computer and a MIDI interface. I just prefer to do the music without a computer as much as possible. I just don't love sitting there with the mouse and like messing around with virtual knobs when I can be like kind of touching things. That's kind of my style. I do still have a DAW. I hear a lot of people refer to not using a computer as like a DAW-less setup. But a DAW is just a digital audio workstation. So essentially this my Zoom R8. This is an 8-track, 2-input, 8-track digital recorder. I'm looking to upgrade very soon to the Zoom R24. So the exact same features, just with 8 inputs. Because I've got this little Mackie Mix 8 right now, which is great. It's serving its purpose. But I would love to be able to just run the instruments all into their own channels. Because again, everybody knows the problem with a mixer is I've got several instruments running into the mixer, but essentially I'm still running all those instruments down into 2 cables to go in here. So if I'm recording live, all of my mixing's done on here, and if I later decide I didn't like the mix, too bad. It's basically been brought in stereo as it is. Where if I go with an 8-input setup, every instrument will have its own input, and then when I record live, like just playing all the instruments essentially, everything's in its own track, and I can add effects and changes later. But I really like this as my recording equipment. The Zoom has just been awesome. I also have a little Boss recorder that's in my travel setup, so I actually have a separate little travel studio that I go with, and I'm going to do a video on that shortly because I have a little traveler guitar and a couple little travel synths and a recorder so that when I'm on the road, I travel a lot, I have something I can make music with as well. So we've got the mixer, everything's basically running into the mixer, and then out of the mixer into the Zoom R8 recorder. Also there's a tape spot on here, so the SP404 runs into the mixer and then back out, so I can essentially like sample any of the instruments in the studio. I can sample these in like through the mixer into the SP404. So let's talk about this little guy here. If you're new to electronic music, this is like the lo-fi setup. This just makes the grittiest kind of lo-fi hip-hop style beats. Really good for kind of indie rock, a lot of good like lo-fi settings. So just basically a sampler. Right, so I got my little sampler. I can do little beats and sample a lot of stuff into here. So basically I've got a few kits, right? A few kits and some like synth loops and stuff like that. So this is where I do a lot of sampling, more on the like lo-fi hip-hop side. And one of the things I should say is I like to do a lot of genres of music. I originally am a guitar player, like singer, songwriter, and then I got into drum machines originally. These were my first 2 drum machines. I got into those just looking for backup to assist me as a guitar player, and that sort of led me into a lot of other genres, because I always listened to like everything from country to hip-hop to grunge to pop and R&B. I listened to sort of everything, so I wanted to express all of those musical instruments, and I would say I've got enough equipment here to do that. So let's talk about the drum machines real quick. This is my Roland SPD6. I've had this a long time, as you can see by the yellowing on it. And this guy is can use it as a hand pad, or basically like an electronic drum kit, essentially, right here. So I use this more for guitar looping and a live feel. Like if I want to play something in, and some congas here. There we go. Right, so can do more sort of a live feel versus like a drum machine feel. So I use this when I want to punch in sort of live drums. This is my Korg Rhythm 55 beats, a 1981, 82 like drum machine, but back then essentially all you have is a number of different styles, shuffles, tango, rock, that kind of stuff, and you just pick one and you pick your tempo, and you basically, it runs off a little foot switch on the floor here. So there you go. So I can run, basically I use this as my jam machine. If I'm playing like my original music, like live on the guitar, I usually jam to this guy here, right? Adjust your little tempo and all that kind of stuff. Has a little fill. And then everything runs, the drum machine runs through this, because without it, sounds a little hollow. Sounds definitely very sort of like old 80s. So this little guy here basically is a reverb, gain, and EQ pedal. So once I punch that on, sort of brings the drums back up, gives them some color, and that's really nice. We talked about the sampler, and then if you're looking for basically the trifecta in a sort of electronic or hip-hop or some sort of like more electronic-based style, is you're looking for a drum machine and a synth usually, and then a sampler, and you're going to sample in your drums and your synth sounds. You're going to mix them up with effects, change the timing, chop them up, and then resample them into stuff. So this is my JU-06A. This is basically a boutique recreation version that Roland produced of the Juno 60 and the Juno 106 synths. So very famous synths, and now all kinds of stuff, right? We've got the Arpeggiator. A lot of fun there with the Arpeggiator. We also have, right here, we've got a sequencer, so you can build in like bass lines. Take it over there. Should be something in that bank, I think. Maybe not. So, anyway, little sequencer on here that we can run different sequences and that kind of stuff, so I can punch in bass lines. It's got a little distortion pedal I'll run the sound through and all that kind of stuff, right? So up here is the drum brute, and the drum brute is basically just an analog drum machine, so all kinds of sounds here from maracas and tambourines, cymbals, congas, high tom, low tom, my hats, claves, clap, snare, and a couple of kicks. And basically the first kick, sort of an 808, 909, and then that runs through a couple of pedals too, just to get some effects in. I run this, the Spark, it's just a 20 dB booster, so it really adds some punch, like gives a little bit of gain. Got my Overdrive on here, and I've got my sampler, or sorry, my digital delay and sampler. So I can run, so some little effects, and then I've just got it running through a reverb in here too, so it doesn't sound too dry. But that's it for the desk portion. Let's take you down and look at the pedals on my pedal board along with my guitar amps. Last, but certainly not least, my favorite area, the pedal board and my amps. Way up there I've got a microphone, which is actually what the GoPro here was mounted on for that top-down shot. So mic runs all the way down and it runs over into here. This is my TC Helicon Create voice tone. This is basically think of like an effects pedal for your mic. And I can run it on off, like I can change through different settings just by stepping on the pedal here, so pretty handy. I've got a pair, yes, a pair you say, of Boss RC30 loop stations. So think of it this way, basically, like split down the middle here, this is all acoustic, and from here over is electric. So think of these as two independent sort of systems that are just built into the same board. My mic runs over into here, into the Boss. We'll call this the Acoustic RC30 because it's for my acoustic setup. So it runs into this Boss here. And then I also have, basically my guitar runs into this pedal here, which is the Electro-Harmonic C9 organ machine. So this thing can make my guitar sound like an organ. And I use that to sort of lay down bass lines and things like that when I'm using the looper. So I've got a lot of different organ sounds. The Smolder Acoustic Overdrive by Fender, and you'll notice I got a lot of Fender pedals on here. I just love the Fender stuff, man. Awesome pedals. Basically an overdrive for an acoustic guitar, so I can dirty up my guitar sound. They're marine layer, it's a tongue twister, marine layer reverb. I'm not going to go into the pedals too much. I mean, if you're interested in the pedals, then look them up. Lots of review videos that somebody's going to do way more professionally than I am going to do it here, but that's my reverb. And I've got the mirror delay here. So basically for my setups I run a bit of overdrive, I have reverb always on, I've got a delay pedal, and then that stuff also runs into the loop station. But because the loop station is stereo in, I can also run one more thing in. So that's where that Korg drum machine runs basically into the back here, because my amp will take two. So I have one option. If I'm just sort of playing and jamming out, I'll just use the Korg drum machine in here just to play guitar to. If I want to add drums into my loops, then that live drum pad that I showed you with the drumsticks, that runs down into here. And this is just my my AB switcher here, so ABY, right? So I can basically go, Y means I can go two ins, or combine two ins into one output, or I can go one input to two outputs, or switch channels with this. And basically I've got the Boss live drum pad running into here, and then it splits, and one side runs into the Boss looper here and the other side here. So I use that the drum pad to add live looping drums into either of these setups. So think of this as like the splitter for my drum machine, and it splits the possibilities to either of these two. Over here is the electric side. So I've got my tuner pedal. This is the Electro-Harmonix Bass 9. This basically, kind of like an octavizer, it just drops your guitar and gives it a really nice bass sound. A bunch of different bass settings on here, so I love it. Again, I just use it for adding a bass line into my loops. Then I've got this guy here, which is the Keystone Exchanger pedal. Oh, this thing is super cool, kind of rare. There's just not many out there. They only hand make so many every year, and I got one. Built in France, and basically this thing takes whatever guitar you're using, and with pickup simulation, it changes the pickup. So I can take my my guitar, my Jazzmaster, with humbucking pickups and change them into like little lipstick style single coil pickups or anything along the way. I've got the Fender Pugilis Distortion, so essentially two distortion channels built into one pedal, and then the reflecting pool I've heard described as basically a combination and update of these two pedals. So I've got the reverb and the delay built in here with a tap tempo and some other options. And then all of that runs into here. And then from here I run back out into the amps and then up into the mixing console there. Well, hope you enjoyed the studio tour, and you know, I just did this because I love watching other people's studio tours, and I thought it'd be cool to kind of give my own and just show what I'm doing. And I think I have a bit of a unique setup, but you know what, so does kind of everybody, like unless they're just running sort of like a lot of digital equipment where it's kind of like the standard setup. I'm doing a lot of different types of music here, so it's led to a very eclectic sort of buildup of instruments and components, but I love what I got here. And looking forward to producing some tunes and putting some stuff out there in the future. So, see you later. I got to make a quick little addendum video. I had ordered the Zoom R24, as I had talked about in the video. I was getting that. So, actually came in today. This is only 2 days basically after I made the first video. So I've set the studio up a little bit different, and let me take you through a really quick walkthrough since you already saw the main studio. Okay, so this is the main console from my point of view here. So essentially the only change really kind of is that I've added in this guy here now. This is the Zoom R24, so essentially you've got 8 inputs and 24 tracks, so there's a track selector up here, and then basically, you know, this track is actually track 1, 9, and 17, so you switch through as you record, but 24 playable playback tracks and 8 simultaneous recording tracks, which is pretty spiffy. Now, I still have a few projects left on this guy that I'm going to finish out, so it's going to hang out up here, and it basically just runs into a line in here so that I can master the songs, and then once they're on this guy, gonna put this guy in a box, and I think I'm just gonna hang on to it as a backup. I just love this guy. I did add a little headphone mixer, and basically my headphone output runs from here to there into this mixer, and then the mixer runs out to 2 different headphone spots. One's over here on the floor for when I'm playing guitar on a longer cord, and then basically right out of this unit I can plug the headphones in if I'm working up here. And the other cool thing is the headphone mixer runs out and into here, so that's how I'm using my SP404 sampler. That's how, if I want to sample any of these instruments here, that's how I'm going to do it basically, is they'll run into the mixer headphone runs out into this guy, and then this guy runs into here so that I can sample, but this also runs out to one of the outputs, so this guy still, so this guy can go out or record in through this system, which is perfect. Got my drum pad rocking here. Right, that's the what I jam to a lot of the time. That's the Juno, and then up here we've got the drum brute rocking. And what's really nice is now, as you can see, they all get their own channel. So let's right, awesome. Love it. So now basically the plan was I got rid of some effects. I don't need as many pedals because I'm going to run basically reverb and compression. You can actually run a couple of line inserts, so basically I can essentially have the drum group run in here. I'll shut off the, let me shut the sequencer off real quick so we can chat. Yeah, so basically each one of these inputs up here, each one of my instruments will run through a virtual effect, and I can run it through chorus, reverb, and then an additional effect. So I can put compression and then reverb on a channel for the drums. So that way I can free up some desk space too, because in the last video I had a bunch of pedals over there that I don't need anymore because all the effects are being done on here now. And that's only due to the fact that each one is a dedicated line in now. Love it. So I basically finished setting everything up today, adding the effects onto the tracks, and then I just basically saved it as a template. So every time I want to do some recording or even just jam, I just bring this up to the template, and the template already has all my reverb, compression settings ready to go. And then all of that, this runs out to my 2 monitors up here. And then I did mention that I have this, the mic, so that comes out. And of course, let's not forget Kurt Cobain up here. Keep on rocking. Well, that's the end of the studio tour for real this time. Studio's complete. Now it's time to just get in there and start making some music. See you later.